Welcome back, man, to another great episode of Comedians in Bed. And as always, I got another good guest here for you today. I'm so excited. And I think he is too, because he got the crispy lineup. Like he made sure he came in here looking right, looking fresh. And I appreciate that. This man is DC Fly out of Chocolate City, the original one. He's one of the funniest comics coming out right now. I actually seen him here when he stopped by in Columbus. I was like, yo, I gotta have Chris Allen on the show, man. And I messed that all the way up. But you just found out who it is, man. No other than the funnier guy himself, Chris Allen. Everybody. Chris, man, how you doing, man?
Now, I wanted that applause to be very long and awkward, so I wanted to sit on it. I'm doing well.
Man, we're so excited to have you here, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. This is fun. So Columbus, so you were at the Mexican Basements show.
Yes, man.
I,
Yes.
I gotta say, man, to be honest, that was a fun weekend at the Columbus Funny Bone.
Yeah.
But that night, man, and it was all sold out shows. Working with Mark Norman, but I had so much fun in that basement, man.
Yeah.
Out of the what 5 shows, 6 shows we did that weekend,
Hmm.
that was by far the best moment of the weekend, man. That was so much fun. It had been so long since I had done like a show like that.
Hmm.
Um, and not that I'm doing like all this big stuff, but it's just like DC is just different.
Yeah.
You know, it's just different. And I started in Ohio, and it just really brought me back to my. I started in Vegas, but I say I really got my I got my bearings in Ohio. So I heard I feel like an Ohio comic, you know,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
where I did like the beginnings of my shit. So like being there, dude, it was just like it just took me back to those early days, and I just felt so comfortable. It was so much fun, and having y'all there was just dope, man. It was one of the best comedy experiences ever.
What's the difference like doing a basement show like a one of those local shows as opposed to being in front of those stage, that big stage?
I I don't you know like when you first start off, you want to get to the clubs because it looks all professional and fun. It's like when you played sports. Did you play sports as a kid?
Yeah.
Like if you ever make it to like a playoff or you make an all-star team and then you get to go to the nicer part of town and then they have the field where like they got lights, they got real dugouts. That's what it's like when you first start doing clubs because it's like you're used to playing bars and basement rooms and back rooms at restaurants and just attics and just weird spaces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and you want to work your way out of that. Then you get to clubs, and then it's just something about the clubs where it becomes like it starts to become work.
Mm.
Like when you really start to get serious, it becomes work, and you get to a certain spot where you're like, all right, I got to focus on trying to become a headliner, and it's just like you kind of lose. You start, and it's like you start to see how people forget where they came from as a comic. Because it's like you start out, I'm not doing that room. I'm not wasting my time. I'm not doing that. I mean, just imagine like for like Chris Rock and them, like how much they forget as a comic, almost like where they came from. To an extent, sometimes they could be insensitive about that shit. But anyway, um, it's just something about going back to the beginning.
Hmm.
You know what it is? You know what I think it is, man? It's almost. I think it's like going. It's like going back to your hometown, and you're a lot better at what you were doing because it's
Hmm.
like you were in these basement rooms. You wanted to do well. You weren't a great comic, but you know what I mean. It was fun, and now that you're better, you get to go back and then show people the growth. It's
Yeah.
just like coming back home. That's
Hmm.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What is that nostalgia feel like?
it's just like It sounds corny and cliche, but like that warm, fuzzy, like I'm home. Just how you feel when you home. Like if you've been traveling or something like that, and you get to come
Hmm.
home, you're like, man, this is my house. This is my couch. It's just like I just felt comfortable. You can say
Hmm.
what you want to say. People
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
you fucking around. And it's like when you're at the club, you always are aware, like, oh, this is a club. I got to be careful. People paid to be here. There's waitresses. But when it's in the basement, it's just dark. People holding beers. There's no waitress. It's just like you just have all those memories of like standing in the back of the room with your friends, wanting to go on, watching a guy that like you see him doing a club and they show up over there. You're like, oh shit, I just saw this dude at the club. He over here, and like y'all just standing in the back, excited to watch a club comic in this basement. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Doing
Yeah.
some polished shit. So
How do
like
you
it's just fun, man.
how do you keep that joy? Like you trying to get to the level that you aspire to be at. How do you keep that joy at the same time?
Man, honestly, you gotta hang around younger comedians. That's something that I realized a couple of years ago. It's just like, man, because I'm not a young dude. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I look younger, but like, I don't want to be an out of touch comic. That's like the worst. I want to be able to appeal to like younger people, and people my age.
Yeah.
And but I think like older people, they kind of come like eventually, but like you got to kind of go get young people. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, yeah, and I just don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be just out of touch. And what's funny is this dude Winston Hodges. Like I've been working with him for years. He's a good friend of mine. We just did host battle in DC last night. And I remember the first time it happened. I used to do this joke where I used to say the word retarded,
Hmm.
and not even in a bad way. I would go, man, I'm not doing that. That's retarded. Like this. Not, to me, it wasn't a bad way. It wasn't derogatory. What I mean, it wasn't derogatory towards anybody.
Right.
So, and like and the joke usually killed. It usually killed, and it did nothing. And I panicked. I'm like, what is going on? So after the show, Winston was like, I saw your face. I saw you panic. He goes, you know why that joke didn't work? He goes, I go, no. He goes, you said retarded. He goes, people do not like using that term anymore. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't know. So I mean, at that moment, right then and there, I had realized, like, man, I was using words that were already outdated, and I could have been a dude that had been like, you know what, fuck that, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and just been one of those people who want to fight evolving and changing and shit like that. And I
Hmm.
was like, I'm not gonna be that guy. So like that was the moment I realized like this is why it's good to be around young people because they can keep you updated. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always every as I get older and learn more, it's always like things are forever changing. Like you gotta learn how to
Right.
adapt to the times.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you so how many years are you in?
13
Okay, okay. So how do we get what part of Ohio did you do comedy at?
in Dayton.
Okay, Dayton. Okay. What did
Yeah.
you like went to high school there?
No, no, I'm from Rochester, New York. I was
Okay.
because I was in the military, so
Okay.
I was stationed there. I started in Vegas, and long story short, I ended up in Dayton, Ohio. Ironically, in the same town where my mentor Vince Morris lived, and I met Vince when I lived in Vegas,
Hmm.
and it just so happened I got orders to Dayton where he lived, and I was like, "This is crazy." So like, he kind of introduced me to the comedy scene there, and I met some open micers, and that's when I kind of like really began like my comedy journey because I had been doing comedy in DC and Vegas for about 2 years, and it's a scene, but it's not like any other scene
Hmm.
because nothing closes. Uh, you do bar shows, and there's TVs on all the time because legally they can't even turn them off. Vegas is just a different beast, and there was no way to like progress to a club or anything like that. It was just kind of like a bar scene show. I mean,
Yeah.
a bar show scene. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? But no, there was no chance at elevating at all. Um, so I did that for about almost 2 years. Then moved to Dayton, and that's when I started to learn like, oh, okay, you do bar shows, and then you got to go to the clubs and sit there in the back and meet comics and hang out, and then go to the open mic and go on Thursdays and Sundays and hang. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
learned all that kind of stuff. The traditional way, which I'm pretty sure is super, super outdated now, because basically, now with social media, you don't really have to do all that kind of shit.
Right.
If you want to be a comic. But that's kind of how I came up, man. Just doing bar shows, slowly working my way into the Dayton Funny Bone, and Toledo, and yeah, just doing a bunch of bar shows, man. Bunch of bar shows.
What's the scene like out there in DC? Because I never realized until like this year, like DC is like one of the meccas of comedy. Like they really got some heavy hitters out there.
DC is dope. I always tell people like if you feel like you wanna go to New York but you're not sure, I go try DC because it's expensive. They got the subway. It's a ton of show. It's just like to me it's like New York light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a small version of New York. You know what I mean? The size of the apartments, the rent, the how you get around, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a little. I think it's a good test spot. And I tell that to dudes around here because I live in the Virginia area, and I'm like, if things get too heavy, you can always move back home, and you're not way up in New York. So it's
yeah,
just like if you can do DC for a couple of years and you like it, I was like, if you stay there and throughout that time you go to New York and make some connections, and when you feel like the time is right, make that jump to New York. So, and that's what a lot of people in DC have been doing lately, just going up there, and people have been doing well. Like Paris Sachet, she went up there. She is killing it. She's doing a lot of stuff. Um, I I don't even know if Natalie McGill. You know what? She doesn't even live in. She lives in D.C. But you have you heard of Black Lady Sketch Show?
yeah, yeah,
She writes on the Black Lady Sketch Show. She's a DC comic. Um, Jamel Johnson, he's on the West Coast. He writes on a bunch of stuff. He's a DC dude. I mean, it's just like it's just people moving there all the time. Brittany, this chick Brittany Carney, she moved up there. Passed at the cellar, you know, just working with all these people, man. This like it's wild, man. People go to DC, they get good. Go to New York, and good things happen for them.
yeah. I've
Yeah.
seen you actually post pictures from doing the cellar. How was that experience? Because that's one of the best clubs in the U.S.
It was cool, man. It was like this, not a weird. It was like this show called Seller Talks, and like I said, I was in the military, and I talked about my experiences working with the drone program and all that kind of stuff. So it was like storytelling.
Hmm.
And what was cool was like getting to explore, doing something on stage other than being funny the entire time. I got to talk about something real, something serious, and but I still went up there. I got some laughs, but I was also very engaging, and people really liked what I had to say. It was a great experience, and even with the seller, like that's a lot of people have like a certain path that they take to get there, but like I'm on my own. Like I can't wait till
Yeah,
I can do a full like just straight up set at McDougal or at the VU, because
yeah,
at the VU where I was there, I've done a podcast there and I've done that.
yeah,
I've done the Fat Black and I've done stand up there, and the McDougal location I've been there, but I've never stepped on that stage. So it's just like it's just a process. Like Norman puts me on some of his shows at the Fat Black, and he was like, just go up there and just kill and do well, and
hmm.
just get your name out there at the club. So
Do you ever think about moving to New York eventually?
I mean, I did, man, but like I would love to, but a lot of stuff it would be a lot to get into, which I'm not gonna do right now. But
Yeah,
that's where I really wanted to be, because like I'll say this, I have focused too much on the New York model of comedy. Like I was just obsessed with New York comics, man. That's just like I just love that, the cellar, just the subways and all that. I just got focused on that, and I felt like I've ignored certain other avenues of comedy. And I'm actually we plan on moving to Atlanta. So like, and I feel like Atlanta's gonna be great for me because like I started in urban rooms,
hmm,
but then like I started making like money, and that's like the locations I ended up at. I just kind of just ended up in this mainstream kind of vein, and
right.
not that I really ever avoided black rooms. It just I got used to doing what I was doing, and making a little bit of money. So it's just like it was just something that I kind of like moved away from. But it's something that I want to really get back into because that's where I came from. And there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about in my life, whether like growing up in the military, my experience of being black, and like where I can't really do that like in the mainstream room right now, especially opening for, and like I say that, and I appreciate everything people like Mark Norman have done for me, man. Because I dude's put a shit ton of money in my pocket. I've done a lot. That dude's opened so many doors. I met so many people. I was just at his wedding. You know, that's my dude. But like, I can. You also learn like you can only grow so much with people, and he
Hmm.
got me to a place, and I feel like it's time for me to move on. And it's like what I want to talk about. I can't really do that shit in front of his, crowd. It's like 98% white dudes, and
Yeah.
like I said, most of them are really cool people. They're supportive of me. They buy merch. They follow me on all the social media. But like, I really want to start exploring other shit. You know,
So you're clearly reading the room, but why not just go out there and tell yourself, I mean, tell your story to these people that don't, get to see somebody that look like you every day.
because I'm sick of doing that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I that's been my whole life. You know what I mean? Because it's like being in the military. I've always been like one of the few black people, like in my office, in my shop, in these programs and shit like that. And I spent so much of my life, you know, uh, like explaining black people to white people and
Yeah.
defending black people to white people and making white people laugh. And not that I don't, that I didn't make black people laugh. It's like that's how I got funny. It's like where I grew up at. And it's just
Mhm.
like I want to get back to that shit because it's like with all the shit that really happened in the last couple of years, like all the BLM shit, the George Floyd, there was shit I really wanted to talk about, but it's just like as somebody else's opener, it's just like I would kind of broach that stuff, but it's really not my place to like really get into like heavy ass black and political shit in front of somebody. You know what I mean? Somebody else's crowd,
Yeah, yeah. So
especially
go
when
ahead.
they don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying kind of like, so there are rules. I'm not knowing this. So there are rules like when you are an opener to like hidden rules or whatever to when you are somebody else's opener.
I mean, to a degree, it's just like obviously he trusts me. I'm open for him, but it's just like I'm just not because I don't want to be too divisive before because ultimately it's their show. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And just where I was, I was just like I'm not. We in Alabama. I'm a black. Like, why am I gonna bring up this George Floyd shit? And they not gonna really understand it, and it's gonna make it tough for him. It's just like I'm not about to do that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Not to say that I've never talked about it on stage because I have. There are times I bring shit up.
Hmm.
But I also try to be funny because it's not my show to get up there and just start talking about shit like that.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're
You
saying.
know what I mean? There's a line to
Yeah,
where
yeah. So how did you know it was time to make that transition to your next phase in your career and more importantly to Atlanta? How did you choose Atlanta?
I mean, my wife just always wanted to go there, and I just realized like, look, it's got a wide swath of comedy. You got 85 South to weird alt comedy, fucking conceptual comedy shit out there. Liberal lefty hippie shit. So you got ghetto legends and the whitest of the white nerds. So I feel like you got the whole spectrum of comedy right there in one town, and it's a hub. So flying out of there and trying to get gigs should be pretty cheap. But my wife wants to live there, and she moved around with me for 15 years in the military, and I was like, she deserves this. So I had to suck it up and accept it because I was like earlier, I was so caught up in this New York shit because I had worked so hard. Because I feel like I'm pretty in with the New York scene, and I feel like I just got to cash in on this now. And I told myself, like, yo, you already know all those dudes. They know you're funny. You cool with them. All you got to do, stay in touch, keep working, get up there, stay, keep your name around, but you don't have to be there, especially if your wife don't want to be there. And after, yeah, New York is rough. It's a rough
Mhm.
town.
Yeah.
And, we used to have a space and shit like that. And I'm like, you know what, Atlanta, this stuff I want to talk about. And like, it will make my wife happy. I have family down there. I was like, you know what, stop fighting it and just go ahead and just do that. And I came to this, I had this epiphany about a week and a half ago.
Mhm.
And if I'm being honest, like, at one point, this was like a really big point of contention in my marriage where we were like, we don't know if we're going to make it, because I was just so adamant about this New York thing, and I wouldn't settle on anything else.
Yeah.
Because she would be like, "Oh, this what about Charlotte in this town?" I'm like, I don't want to live in fucking Charlotte. Ain't nothing in Charlotte for me.
Right.
You know.
So you making sacrifices in your marriage and it's paying off for you. What, like, speak to the sacrifices that you guys have both have to make, especially pertaining to each other's career. And
I
how did
mean,
you learn to make those sacrifices too?
I'm right now. I gotta say, man, I'm learning because it's like because I was in the military. I was the priority because that's what was paying the bills and shit. So, and I really didn't get much say in where we went at that either. Because you could kind of like make a list of where you wanted to go, but I really wasn't in control of that. Um, so I would say my wife at this point, and I'm not comparing sacrifice, but my wife has made the biggest sacrifice. I mean, like not really being able to have a home base to actually build a career, because for civilians it's completely different. Like
Hmm.
civilians need to have that stability and show like, hey, I've been at this spot for 8 9 years before you move on to something else. But here we are moving every 3 4 3, even anywhere from 4 to 6 years. That's not great for a resume. You can't really start a career like that, you know. But luckily, over that decade and a half, our society has changed and people are moving a lot more, and that's more accepting. But like, so she's made the huge sacrifice of like, yeah, just sacrificing professionally and kind of
Hmm.
taking like, like entry level jobs at times, especially when like she had got her MBA and you're expecting to like, oh, MBA, we should be in this pay scale range, but when you haven't had the work history to of the equivalent pay, you just can't go from making 30 to like 60 or 70 just because you got a piece of paper, especially, you know what I
Right.
mean. And then it's like, you know how life is. It's like you have this plan of what you want to be, and then you find out you like some other shit, and you go, I want to do this as a job, and you realize like, that don't really pay as much as I thought. You know what I mean? So like, social work, she's not gonna get rich being a social worker.
Hmm.
And it's like you have this big idea of like, oh, but you know how life is, man. Shit just
Yeah.
so I would say my wife has made that sacrifice, and now like with her being the more breadwinner, uh, it's about me. It's about me swallowing my pride and learning to be uh, a second fiddle, which I'm cool with mentally, but I know I'm fine with it, but it's just like learning the role. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like I'm cool being here, but like, all right, let me figure out what that is. How can I be the best second fiddle?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
But still having that mental thing of like I'm first fiddle, but you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
struggle. I gotta learn to like really fall back and take more direction. I mean, but like being on this side, man, it's just like, man, that's crazy. Like the fact that like my wife we would live somewhere for 4 or 5 years, right? She would
Hmm.
meet friends and shit like that, and then like one day I'd literally come home and go, "Hey, we moving,"
Mm.
and she just gotta be like, "Okay." I mean, just to have to uproot her life
Right.
multiple times, you know what I mean? And then like when she like, I want to go to Atlanta, I'm like fighting with that shit, and it really hit me like, bro, she did this shit for 15 years.
Mm.
But when you're used to being in that spot where like they have to go where I go, it's kind of hard to take that step back. But I've learned to do that. I'm learning to do that shit, and it feels good to kind of like just let go and realize like I don't need to be in control of everything. You know what I mean? She
Hmm.
got it, but
Yeah.
it's just yeah. So
Are you
is this too deep and too not
Nah,
really
this
really
is not. This
advice?
is heck no.
Oh,
This is good because I was
okay.
somebody called me today and was asking me for advice, like relationship wise, and I was
Mm.
had to have a conversation with him, and that's the next question I was going to ask was like, how do you balance the two? And then like, where like, is it like a lack of? I don't. We don't got to get too personal, but is it like a lack of trust of like her taking the lead?
No, I just think it's just fear of the unknown.
Mm,
Because I know my wife. It's just something. It's a mental block for me.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like, hey man, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Because like, it was scary. Like when I first started doing comedy, like anytime I got orders somewhere, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do comedy because I live in Charlottesville, and
Hmm.
like when I got orders here, I was like, fuck man, I was like, there's no comedy in Charlottesville at all, and this really really sucks. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. But like coming here ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me. And there's nothing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing here. And let me say this. So when I first started Vegas, just a couple mics here and there in town, right? Then I moved to Dayton, Ohio, a little bit bigger scene, and I really didn't have to drive very, very far to do mics. Maybe if we wanted to go to Cincinnati, that was like 50 minutes, but most shows were 30 minutes away,
Yeah.
right? Multiple shows around town. I live 15 minutes from the club. I can go whenever I want, and I'm used to this for 5 years. And I get here, there's no comedy in town. Richmond is an hour and a half away. DC is 2 hours away, and I'm like, man. And it was like my first test that, like, all right, how bad do you really want this shit? And it sucked because I was not used to driving these long distances. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And then like and this was weird too, like learning to be a new guy in the scene.
Hmm.
I was 5 years in, and I'm going to Richmond, and like 5 years. That's like a decent amount of time in where you can start to, who's new, who's bad. Like, oh, this guy is just this is a hobbyist. You start to know that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So, but I learned like when you come into a scene, you got to be humble as fuck. Like, don't say anything about who you work with. None of that shit. You have to let your comedy speak for itself.
Hmm.
You got to let it speak for yourself. So, like going to Richmond and like no one knowing who I am. Not that I was anybody, but like being a nobody. People, hey, you know how this works, right? You got 5 minutes, and have you done this before? And I don't want to be an asshole. Yeah, I've done it. I've done it a couple times. Yeah, just do you have 5 minutes? Like people just talking to you like that and shit. You
Hmm.
just got to learn to like, you know what? Let my comedy speak for itself. And so that was weird. Getting into DC, that was tough, but I made it work, man. Like me and my boy, this dude Ray, he worked with me,
Hmm.
and I'm still active duty. I would work every day from like 7 to 4, pick my son up from daycare 7 to 3, drop him off at the house, get him ready. My wife would come home, and then Ray would show up at the crib, and we would go to DC. And I'm doing this 4 times a week, sometime during the week. DC is 2 hours away. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I'm driving up to DC, doing 2 5-minute spots, and then driving right back home. Like getting home at
Hmm.
like 2 in the morning, get up at 5, get my son ready, go to work. I'm doing this for like 3 or 4 years,
Hmm.
just going to DC. And luckily, I had my boy Ray with me, man. He was he. Everybody thought he was a comic after a while. They was like, "We never see you go up, Ray." He was like, "I'm not even a comedian." He was like, "I just like to hang out."
Yeah.
Because Ray he liked to eat, he liked to drink and stuff. So he was just like, he was my road dog, man. Like any long show, any long drive, Ray was down. He
Yeah.
was ready, man. That was my dude. Why is this shit so blurry? There we go.
No, you're straight. Yeah, man. No, that's cool, man. Like you actually had like support and everything with you
Yeah.
too, driving 2 hours away. I think my moment was when I was driving down to Cincinnati, which is only about like an hour 15 from Columbus, and I didn't know it was gonna rain. Like well, I knew it was gonna rain, but I didn't know it was gonna rain. Like it was
Right.
like you couldn't see. And then like my windshield wiper is like halfway work. So I was just like calling on Jesus the whole time. Like it's just giving me
Right.
weird.
Right.
Like because I'm like, I don't know. And this is just like for like 7 minutes. So that was definitely my moment right there. But since you going to Atlanta, there's so many more opportunities with like acting, writing, anything like that.
Yeah.
Are you going
Yeah.
to expand your comedic writing gift in those different avenues as well?
Absolutely, man. I've written one script that is not great, and I have a great idea for another one, and man, I just been held back by fear, man. I've been honest with myself, and it's just fear of like, cause like not just you know what it is like knowing that I don't know what I'm doing and it's gonna be bad, but I feel like the idea is so good. It's just
Hmm.
like if I write this, it's not gonna be good, but I have to tell myself it's okay. It's gonna suck. You're new at this. It's okay
Yeah.
if it sucks. It's okay. And like I don't know, like the other script I wrote, I had fun doing it, but it's just like trying to get back on that horseman has been tough. And you know what? Fuck that. I'll say this tonight. I will try to write. I'm going to write 2 pages. I'm going to write 2 pages.
I'm gonna double check you. I'm gonna
I'm
double
a
check
I'm
on
gonna do
that
two
too.
pages tonight, man.
Yeah, man. I be writing scripts too, man. I think it's just another outlet to exercise like your gift and stuff like that. And I see like a lot of comedians like go that route as well.
Yeah, it was so funny. I used to be kind of against it when I was. Cause see, I get such tunnel vision, man. But then when I unfocus, now I take in too much. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
now what I'm trying to do, I'm really just trying to like focus on a couple of things now, because I try to put my hand in so many baskets. I do too much, man. So I've been trying to like step back a little bit and go, okay, let me pick one or two things and
yeah,
work on that. You
yeah.
know.
Another thing that you work on, man, you are the host of the Negro Please Radio. I listened to a couple episodes. I listened to the last dinosaur one. Like you
Uh,
really just be sitting there, just like talking, kidding the shit by yourself. Like, how did you come up with this? Like, where did this idea come from?
Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Bill Burr. Bill Burr, man. I just yeah, I just the idea of it's becoming, cuz at first, man, like just sitting there talking for 20 minutes was hard.
Yeah.
It was really really hard to do. But then see, look, no, it's at 40 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just like I told myself, let me just do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got used to doing that, and then sometimes, and that's the thing, sometimes it can be really really serious, sometimes it can be really weird. It's just, this is weird. Is this me? What is this? I'm fucked. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's you.
But oh, I was like, wait a minute, is this?
Yeah, I was sharing the screen.
Oh shit. I was like, I know I smoked a little bit, but I was like, but this is wild. I was like, I could have swore I changed the background, and I was like, but I'm not moving the same. Okay. But
My
yeah,
phone
but
told you about that. My phone.
because at first I was like, oh yeah, that's YouTube, but then I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? But I love doing my podcast, man, and I'm ready to expand and do something with some other people. And there's a couple of DC comics that like we're working on a podcast together right now. My boy Tim Miller and Glenn Lawrence. So we've been kind of having like these sessions and kind of like just working out our kinks with each other. Not kinks, but fuck. Hey, to each his own. I'm married. But we were kind of working out like the verbal kinks, and like just trying to figure out each other's rhythms and stuff like that. So the three of us, I think that's gonna be great, man. We're gonna be talking about any and everything on that show. We haven't come up with a name for it yet. We've been fighting over it, but
Yeah.
it's been really really fun. And another thing I realized too, I'm ready to stop doing everything trying to do everything alone, because that's I've been isolated from comics for so many years, and I'm not gifted with a lot of uh like tech savvy and shit. I'm not. I
Mhm.
need help with that, and
Yeah.
like it's been tough trying to like learn that shit by myself, and it's kind of an excuse, but like I'm just ready to be around more comics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How important is it to network? That is important. They could, like you said, being around young comics teach you something. Like, how important is it to network with other comics?
I think, honestly, man, I think networking is probably one of my biggest attributes, and I didn't realize it. I feel like, yeah, that's just one of I just was good at it, and I didn't realize that that's what I was good at. Even though I'm like, I could be very socially awkward, but like, I have this ability, if I want to, I can turn affability on, if that's even a word. I can turn that shit on, charm in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I really can, if I want to. I can really act like I give a fuck. I have that ability to just lie to motherfuckers and act interested.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that
yeah.
I think that's part of being a comic, just because we're able to like just lie to crowds constantly. That's all we do. It's like we're lying to 300 people. Like none of this shit happened.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Nah. So when you have you ever been to Atlanta before?
I've been a few times. Like it's funny, man. Like I fumbled the bag on this shit, man, and I just didn't really, cause like when I was in the military, I was in Augusta for like 6 months. God damn. And I would go to Atlanta, and I would plug into the scene a little bit. And that's when Carlos Miller and them they were coming up, and I had done Carlos' show a couple times, cool with him and shit. Playing English like this was I mean this is probably like 2010 or something. Like they were up and coming. They hadn't been on TV or anything yet really. And yeah, I would go and do their shows and just bomb and shit. But like, if I knowing what I know now, I would have went to Atlanta way more. But I was so intimidated by I was still pretty new. I was super. Oh, you know what? I was intimidated by like some of the black clubs there because I remember going to God, what's that one super famous club? It's notorious for fucking being a rough room in Atlanta. I think that that original room is closed now, but like
Mhm.
they reopened it somewhere else. But like I remember going there to watch a show and just watching motherfuckers getting booed and shit. I was like, man, fuck that. I was just not in the mood for that shit because I had drove 2 hours from
Yeah,
Augusta to hang out with my cousin and be with them and do some shows. I'm like, man, I ain't fucking drive 2 hours and then another 50 minutes to get here to get booed off stage and feel like shit. I was like, I
right,
ain't doing that. But I
right.
wish I would have pushed myself a little bit harder back then and went to Atlanta a lot more.
What's the
But
difference between like working mainly white room and then the difference between working a black room? Because sometimes those rooms are a little different. You might want to try different jokes like that, and speak to the importance of why it's important to work like different rooms too.
honestly, man, you know what? I'm gonna say what it really is. People have all these. It's really just about authenticity and being yourself. And I understand what you mean because like not every comedy room is different, and that also rings true for black rooms. So you're gonna have certain black rooms where they're expecting a certain type of comedy,
Hmm.
but if you know you don't deliver that type of comedy, you have to go up there and just be like, look, this is what you gotta be steadfast in what the fuck you do and be authentic, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I know that feeling of like, oh man, I'm not a black comic like this. They're not gonna like me. And I've been really watching a lot more comedy now because like I kind of stopped watching as much comedy as I used to. Like after a while I got the guys that I like, and if I heard of anybody that was coming up in the industry, I would watch them. But I just wasn't really watching comedy willy nilly like that for a long time,
Hmm.
like you do when you're super young and in comedy. But I started watching more stand up of just random comics and stuff. You know, just like Chocolate Sundays and just any videos from clubs that they've been the videos that clubs post. And like I just noticed like there's so many more black voices in comedy. Like even when and I don't want to seem like I'm like this super old comic, but when I started, it really wasn't that common. You know what I mean? It was just like people all kind of sounded the same. It's
Hmm.
just like you're either doing a Mike Epps, you're doing a Cat Williams, or two or three other people. But there was a certain type of comedy people were, style they were doing, and I think like that's why I like Hannibal so much because
Hmm.
Hannibal was so different when he came out. Because like one thing that that bothered me, and you know what, and it bothered me because I was ignorant. Because I remember my boy Diaz was like, "Oh, you a low energy comic," and I thought that was such an insult. Because I was like, "Man, a low energy." I was like, that really hit me hard, and it made me feel like I was doing something wrong. And like that's no knock on Diaz. It was just I was so ignorant to the game. I didn't really know what he meant by that. So I think at times I found myself like trying to do some shit that really wasn't me. And then I
Hmm.
saw Hannibal. I say all that to say I saw Hannibal kind of like, hey, just kind of doing this thing. And it's just like that's more what I would like to do. But what's funny is it's like not doing that. It kind of let me know like I'm a mixture of Hannibal and I do have bursts of energy. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It just I hadn't found it at that time. I just didn't have the confidence to do it at that time. So if I wish I wouldn't have took that to heart, you know what I mean? Because I would have
Yeah.
probably I would have stayed true to myself a little bit more instead of like trying to. But like I said, it did help me out a little bit.
Yeah.
It broke
Yeah.
me out of my shell. So
Did you like have to find different ways to make your voice sound? like a certain like good on the mic, because when that's one thing I've been like, that's one thing I noticed, like my voice I feel like is sometimes too deep and sometimes I talk too fast, so sometimes I'm like real caught. Well, early on I was more cautious of like the things I would say and make sure I like watch those type of things.
I mean, as a person who I'm a mumbler. I'm a awful speaker. So that was one of my biggest fears about getting into comedy was like, will people even be able to understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So even like on right now, I have to be very, very conscious of like, hey, make sure you're moving your lips and your tongue to pronounce these words correctly.
Right.
Um, but um, I don't. I think your voice sounds fine, man. Honestly, I think we're hard. We're really hard on ourselves when it comes to our voice, man. Because most comics literally hate their voice, like
Right.
the sound of their voice.
Right.
You feel like it doesn't. It's you feel like it sounds different than everybody. Like I feel like when I listen to me, I feel like I sound really boring,
Mm.
and I feel like I almost did an imitation of my voice, but I hate hear it. It sounds real. I hate it. I hate
Yeah.
my voice.
So how did you find your comedic voice,
I'm
or
still.
are you still finding it?
I feel like I'm still finding it, man.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm still finding it, but I can go up there and talk. You know what? I know how I like to deliver things, but I don't know if I found my true voice yet. And honestly, I've been really excited because I've realized that like there's so much shit I haven't talked about, just about my life and my like a lot of my personal experiences. So I've been writing about that a lot, and it's gonna be interesting to see how I choose to deliver that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you continue to find the confidence to do comedy when you don't feel like you found your voice yet?
The thing is, man, I'm probably one of the most unconfident comedians you will ever meet in your life, man. I think I'm so bad at this. I have no confidence in myself when it comes with. But when I'm on stage, I'm having a great time. But like I can't, I cannot promote myself. I'm not gonna be like I'm a dope comedian because I'm in the back of my mind like they might not like me, man. I'm kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't, man. You know what it is? I really don't give a fuck what people think, man. Deep down inside, I just like talking on the microphone, man.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going. I just love doing it, and I
Yeah.
think I don't even know why. And to be honest, man, like the last year or so, I've asked myself, like, is this what I really want? Like, I'm driving to DC, like, nigga, do you really want this shit? Like, you really could just not do this. Why are you doing this? I ask myself that. So I'm like, why the fuck are you doing this? Even this. Why am I fucking doing this podcast? No disrespect, you know what I'm saying? I ask myself that shit. But the thing is, man, I fucking love comedy.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that somebody wanted to talk to me. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
But I was just like, shit might be weird. This nigga talking about being in the bed. I don't know.
Well,
Me and
you
my Me and my wife had like a 20-minute discussion about this shit before I responded. I was like, what does this mean? You want to FaceTime me in the bed? I was like, man, this dude weird.
Bruh, this dude was like, he's like, send me a link.
Yeah,
And I sent him
because my
the
wife was
link.
like, ask for a link. I was like, for real? She was like, yes. I was like, all right. And I was like, oh, it's just a regular podcast. She was like, there you go. Because I'm so non-confrontational, man.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about me. I'm very non-confrontational, but I don't know if you like this, but for me, there are some days where I'm like very, very blunt with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if a homeless person, I'm like, hey man, I don't have anything for you. Where like the day before, I would drive to the other side to not talk to him, and then like the next day, it's just like, nope, don't even think about it. All right, don't even think about it. Like me and my wife were in New Orleans, and it was like the ACL. Somebody was out there asking about like, uh, do I do I want to take a minute to sign something about abortion and babies? I'm like, no, I'm cool. And they're like, no, it's only take a minute. I was just like, look, man. I was like, no, I'm fine. And it was like, well, I was like, look, man, I don't feel like thinking about dead babies. I don't want to hear you talk. And my wife was like, why do you? I was like, I told this person twice, no. And I know that's not nice, man. I know, but sometimes I'm just in that mood where I'm like, don't ask me for shit. No. Are you like that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, it's just like, because, man, there's like this lady who hang out at the sheets near me. And there's
Mhm.
been days where I'm like, don't even come over here. And she'd be like, all right, not today.
Yeah, my boss knows. I have days where I'll be like, if it's not work related, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Like, you're right, man. Sometimes like your money be weird, and then like you like buying a little bit of last bit of groceries. You trying to calculate fucking gas and haircuts and shit, and then hey, can I get five? Bitch, can I get $5? Like, I'm going through some shit. Leave me alone. It's just them days, man, where you just don't, where like you just don't have sympathy for anybody. You so selfish, and I just got to work on like being nicer about those days.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I
Like, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like I feel like that could be a bit. And
Yeah, it
see,
could.
and I feel like I'm moving away towards like that, like the traditional kind of like clever comedy. Like I really want to start just having it be more conversational and just like more about my life and stories and stuff, rather than like and I don't get me wrong, I love clever writing and all that kind of stuff, but I just want to upgrade it to something more substantial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like people gravitate to comics more when they talk about more personal things because it's
Right.
like, oh, I've been through that too, or it's kind of like, oh shoot, you've been through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that, yeah, it's just I'm trying to really transition into that, man. Just talk about myself, just like why I am the way I am. Like I just started this big note on my computer, and it's just called Bobby, and it's just like I'm writing everything about my dad. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking like
mhm,
maybe I'll try to do like a 30-minute special about my dad to call it Bobby, and just talk about
yeah,
my experiences with my dad. Maybe
yeah.
I do it with my mom, and then you know what I mean. I'm just trying to explore different shit, man. Just do different things.
So you write on your actual computer?
Yeah, it was a slow transition, man, because I fought that shit. Because I would say up until, I mean, the thing is, I still have a pen and paper. I
Mm,
still have a set list. I still do like to write things down, but it's just become a lot easier to like just manage things digitally. And
mhm.
I lose papers and shit all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
I write jokes on my phone, and then
yeah,
I didn't even know why I didn't like pay attention, but I write it in my notes. So sometime yesterday I was punching some jokes up on the laptop through my notes. So I was like, I can do that going forward too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It just makes it easier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But nah, to go back now.
What I do? Sorry.
No, 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 you're fine. uh, after he asked for the link, I gave him the link, and he was like, "Oh, this is a." I thought he was like, I thought this was a bed. I'm like, nah.
Okay, yeah. I thought this was bed.
But the thing is, like, I don't know how I came up with the name. I really was just high for real. But it was really just like it was really kind of like a play on words, kind of like a place to be intimate. You can have those deep conversations, but also learn and get some good laughs in too.
No, yeah,
So
yeah.
I definitely
And
want to appreciate you because you definitely didn't have to say yes. That's for sure, especially some stranger in
And
your
you
city.
know what? Yeah, and what I've been trying to do too is say no more to shit. And I'm not even. And the thing is, I'm not anybody, but like just learning to say no this is to go back to the balance thing. Just learning to say no, like learning to like actually look at my calendar and make sure I'm not double booking stuff. And one of the this is might sound silly, but for our balance in our relationship, the biggest thing for us was like getting a shared calendar, and I fought that shit, man. I fought it. Like this was something that we had to go to therapy over. Like it's something that just the way I just was so adamantly and vehemently. I almost said yeah vehemently against a calendar. I thought I said Vietnamly. Vietnamese. It sounds like Vietnamese. It's something I'm saying Vietnamese. What the fuck am I saying? I was just so against it. I don't know why. It was just scary to me. But once she was like, look, this is how it's gonna work, and I started scheduling stuff, and our schedules started to like not conflict with each other. We started to argue less, and things got better. And then I had to learn like, okay, I just can't be leaving all the time to go to Richmond or DC or whatever to do a $25 set. Like it has to be some substantial money, actually for free. That was my first rule. Like if it's for money, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you know what I mean? That's what I told her. If it's for money, I'll go. I stopped after I got past at all the clubs and stuff in DC. After doing the, 3 4 times a week, hitting the mics. Once I started getting paid and past the clubs, that's when I was just like, okay, I'll cut back to just doing more of just the paid shows. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
now and this was before the pandemic, but now like a lot has changed in DC. Now I'm trying to get back up there and do more of the shows because like the scene has changed so much. There's so many new comics in DC and so many new producers and new shows and stuff. So where like now I'm trying to hit all these different little producers and stuff so I can work out in many rooms as possible in DC.
So is it more so your career tells you it's time to start getting paid, or is it like a feeling inside that you're like, okay, I know my worth, I need to start getting paid? Because one of my experiences here is like people want to get paid right away, and I get it, but it's like I don't know, it's like you can't make money exactly right away. Not at
Yeah.
least not the money you would like to make.
No, I know exactly what you mean because when you first start doing comedy, you just like you ask yourself that like how the fuck do you get people to pay you to do this shit? It's weird,
Yeah, yeah.
but it was just it had nothing. I I needed to find balance because my wife was like, you just keep doing all these shows, and I was like, okay, I need to find like how can I determine what shows I'm gonna do because I was still active duty, so it wasn't like it was money that I was leaning on. It was extra money. So I was like, I tell you what, if it's a paid show, I'll go up there, and I'll really cut back on like just going up there for nothing.
Hmm.
And so that's what I had to do to
Okay,
get
okay.
some order, and now that like when I started to do more weekends, like actual like doing more pro shit, it became like okay, um, let's try not to do more than like 3 weekends a month because that means it's only her and my son and she can't do anything. So it's just like I have to allow her, some weekends too.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. And so just trying to schedule like, okay, well if I'm not gonna be going to Texas with Norman, maybe I'll see if I can get something at the DC Improv or get something at one of the underground clubs where I'm doing it's like a showcase show where
Hmm.
like I'm doing 10 minutes and it's like $50 a set or something like that. And I can come back the same night. So just trying to find that balance of like, all right, well Friday I'll go to DC, I'll come back, and then Saturday you can go and do whatever you got to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that.
Listening to you speak, Chris, man, I really do want to like commend you on like
Yeah,
adjusting to, I guess, the season you and your wife is in. Because a lot of niggas would be like, "Nah, it's my way or the highway." Like you really like y'all
I'm,
really are a team.
I appreciate. Well, look, here's the thing, man. We're working on it, man. And me and my wife, we've talked about this. Sometimes it's a lot of push and pull, and it hurts us. And uh, the more we talk, the more I've been going to therapy, and the more I've been honest and open with myself, and just being willing to listen and learning to either push or pull in the same direction. Cause like I just grew up so defensive, man. Like it's just like a lot of times she has to go, Chris, I'm trying to fucking help you, dummy. Like why are you fighting me? Like this isn't an attack. So like me being defensive has really like put a uh has stalled some growth at times, but just learning to like put the walls down. Like, hey, I'm cool. I don't need to defend myself. Everybody is here to help me. That's when I know. That's when things start to go a lot better, man. When I'm not fighting, you know, and being all fucking in my head and shit.
But what made you go to therapy?
You want the honest truth?
Yeah.
One day I was sitting at my desk at work and I was fucking crying for no reason, and I didn't care if I live or died, and I was not suicidal, but I was just like, I don't give a fuck what happens to me. And that's
Yeah.
when I was just like, there's something's probably not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been in therapy?
I saw the first dude for a few years, and then I took a break, and my wife was like, "You got to get back in there." So now I see another dude, a black dude, which has been dope as fuck, man. I got a black therapist. Like this is crazy. If I would have told myself 10 years ago, like you're gonna be walking around the park with another dude talking about your feelings and all this type of shit, like you would. I would say 15 years ago, I would never believe it. You know what I mean?
So you and your therapist actually walk in the park?
Nigga, we go to the park, yeah.
Wow.
But
No.
you know what? We had a real moment last week because did you see the UVA shooting? The three
Yeah.
football
Yeah.
players. So
Yeah.
that's here where I live at.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, like, and I have therapy every Monday, 10 o'clock at this when we meet at the park. And they hadn't caught this dude yet. And ironically, the killer has the same name as me.
Mm-hmm.
So because my name was Chris Allen Jones, and this dude's name was Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. And I was just like, he's a big black dude. His name's Chris Jones. My name's Chris Jones. And like, I texted my therapist, and he happened to email me. He was like, "Hey, we should probably like not go to the park and just do it virtually." But ain't that crazy though? For like, that's
Yeah.
another thing that like black dudes, black men have to think about. It's just like I even tweeted it. I was just like, I'm staying my black ass inside all day. I took my son to school, and I was like, I'm not leaving my house until they catch this guy.
Yeah.
And I know for some people that might be a little bit of paranoia, but you just never fucking know what's gonna happen, man.
Especially in
Sometimes
America.
in America, I got the same name. I'm a big dude. You know what I mean? Same
Yeah.
name, and I was like, I don't need any issues. And we usually have my mic on Monday, but we decided to cancel that out of respect to what happened at that campus. So we didn't do our show, but yeah, that was it was just a weird moment that I had to cancel my live in person, uh, therapy appointment because they hadn't caught this dude and they knew who he was, and not knowing where he was, I was like, God forbid this motherfucker hiding at the park that we
Yeah.
happen to be walking through, or we get stopped and questioned. They see my name on my ID, and next thing you know, I'm on the ground just until they sort it out. And for
Right.
me, I was
Right. Right.
just like, that's not even worth the risk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
No, I
know?
definitely understand. I didn't even know about that had happened until like the day to the morning of. I mean, the morning after, because I think that happened late at night, and I don't know what I was doing, but
Yeah, it was
yeah, when
like
I saw
10.
that, it was pretty intense and pretty crazy.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, but that's dope that you go to therapy. I've had a male therapist, but he was white, and we didn't really like. He was cool, but I felt like he was more. I was more so just venting to him, and him like not giving me counsel shit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I see black women, but what was the difference? That's my favorite, like black women. I never had a black male, but what's the difference between going to a white counselor and a black counselor? What was your experience like?
I mean, yeah, Larry was cool, man. Like
His name was Larry.
Larry, you know what's funny? Me and my wife were on our way to go see Wakanda Forever on Sunday,
Uh-huh.
and we driving down the road, and I look over, and it's my old therapist driving in this truck right next to me. I was like, oh shit, that's fucking Larry. But he was cool. He was a Christian guy. We connected on a military level because he was in the Coast Guard for a while. Back in the day, and so we used to kind of talk about that. And but yeah, he was cool. And that's the thing. I guess just because of my military experience, I really didn't have an issue talking to a white dude just because
Hmm.
I was just so fucking just used to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like it was weird when stuff would happen. Like he would let me really like when racial stuff would happen. He would listen. He was an empathetic dude, but like it never got really too heavy, and I really never felt like I could really just be 100% honest with him. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And then with Nick, it's completely different. It's just like, yeah, nigga, we blah blah blah, yeah, yeah, nigga, yeah. So it's cool, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I've had like an older counselor who's like a grandma type. And and she was a pastor, and I was telling her all my business, but she ain't let me know till like several months afterwards. And then the one I got now, she's like kind of like my age, so it's been like a good transition, definitely a
Oh,
good
for real.
transition. Yeah,
Yeah, it's yeah, it was. I got lucky finding him. So I mean, he's been dope, man. And like I think I went every week for like a couple months, and then I scaled back to once every 2 weeks. But like,
oh,
I mean,
you graduated.
yeah, but I mean, honestly, if I could really truly, if I could, I would go more often. I would probably go at least once a week.
Yeah,
I would go
yeah.
once a week, man.
Yeah, I just got to the point where I go once a month, mainly because my pockets. But yeah,
Yeah, it's expensive to take care of yourself,
yeah, yeah.
and weed has helped me out a lot too. But
Weed has definitely helped me out a lot.
I
It's
do. I have
definitely.
done honestly, man. I've done so much self reflecting when I've been high, man. A lot. I've had a lot of like some. I've had some painful fucking epiphanies and breakthroughs. Like, yeah, man, you're this, and it's just like, But when I'm sober, it's just like you run from it. But like sometimes when you got that indica in you, your brain be like, yeah, nigga, just sit in this shit and listen to it. Just sit right here, and you be like, man, this is all true about me. So.
Some of my best conversations with God was when I was high.
Yeah. Yeah.
For real, for real. Do you ever go on stage high? Some people use it as a crutch. Some people use it to have fun. Do you go on stage high or no?
The first time I did, man, I bombed so bad that the guy didn't even pay me, and I felt awful, man. I felt really really bad about it, and I never did that again.
Yeah,
I've experimented a couple times at the mic to see how I feel, and it can be fun, but it's just like you just for me, I'm just not. You know what? It has to be the perfect amount to where it really is like if you already kind of like firing on all cylinders, if it's something that just give me like a little 10% more, a little kick, but like finding that sweet spot ain't really worth it. Even though you hit
yeah,
it every once in a while, but like it ain't worth it. It's too small. It's too small to hit.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I
It's
get
that
it.
yeah.
No,
It's
I
gotta
get it.
it's gotta be in the right spot.
No, I take at least about three or four. But I give myself an hour before, probably an hour and a half. Take about three or four hits, and then I'm good to go, and I'm
Really?
straight. Yeah. When I first smoked and went on stage, I bombed hard, and I was like, nah, we ain't doing that no more. And then I don't know. I think like after the pandemic, I was just going through some stuff, and I really didn't give a fuck. But I was like, I need to be at the club to talk about what I'm feeling. So I just started going high, and my anxiety was already high from what I was going through. So
Hmm.
it kind of like helped brings my
Oh,
anxiety
there you
down.
go. So, yeah, there you go. It helped you out. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Yeah, it's just like if I'm in a good mood and if I smoke the right type of weed that's gonna enhance that, it's great. But if I'm kind of like I'm not feeling well, and I do some shit and it can have the negative effect to where like I can't even form a coherent thought at all. So
Yeah, you definitely gotta check the strain. I'll be like, I ask my weed man all the time, what's this?
you,
Like, what's the name of this? Because
you
I
know
need to
it's
look it up.
I gotta be honest. That's why I like white drug dealers because
Yes.
because
Yes,
niggas like
man.
nigga it's why it matter because I want to know.
They straight up be like, this indica. I'll be like, nah, man,
Yeah.
nah. What's the name of it?
Mhm.
I need to know. I don't need the colorful package. No,
Yeah.
I need the name of
Yeah.
this.
This one dude. When I, he's like somebody I caught from when I'm like I can't get to the dispensary and I just don't feel like spending because he got them for the low. And I'm like, I'll hit him up and I'll be like, yo, and he just be like, only highs left or only low. He just calls it highs and lows. It's not even indica or sativa. It's just high. What you want, a high or a low? What?
You ain't got no mid, nigga.
It's,
You ain't
yeah,
got
it's
no
just
mid.
gas. Like, what is it? It's gas. It's like, man, I need to know.
That's how I know you an amateur drug dealer. You telling me it's gas or it's fire. Nah,
Yeah,
what's the name? Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
We
So I
got
make.
these. Oh, go ahead.
Go
My
ahead, my
bad.
fault. No, go ahead, my fault.
Yeah, we got these pop ups out here that are pretty dope that we have on Fridays. And there's a dude I get. He's got some great shit. This dude named DC Butterflies, man. And like, You right. It's so funny. Like if you have you ever been to a pop up event before, like a weed vending event?
No, I haven't.
So just imagine people have like little tables set up, right? And like some of them look really professional. They got like the nice Tupperware, and they go, "Hey, this is 50 for the eighth, this that." They even got like the little containers. It's got like a little magnifying glass on top, so you can look the nuggets. But then you have like the street niggas who just have a garbage bag. Yo, I got that gas right here. But I will say this about niggas, like when street niggas go in there, they know they weed. Like everybody else got labels. A street nigga can have 15 garbage bags. He can smell one. That's this. That's that. That's that. He know that shit.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
but it's just funny how like they set up just be bare bones. They're not used to doing the shows. You know what I'm saying? They used to just
Man, sometimes they give me like my old connects would give me weed like in a Kroger bag, like rip off a Kroger bag and just tie it together.
oh my god.
I'm like, nigga, you can't afford no Ziploc bags.
Yeah,
What's
Ziplocs.
going on, man?
I got one of my favorite ways to get weed is in an empty cigarette case in a cigarette little box.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just use the plastic from that and put the weed in there, and there you go, man.
Have you ever got hit with the mailbox yet? Like it's in the mailbox, just leave the money in there.
Oh nah,
Oh man, yeah, we different out here. Different out here. Chris, what's like one motivational thing that you could say to any like comedian that's listening to this right now?
you gotta push through the low points. Just know whenever you down, just know that at some point in time it's going to change, and you just you gotta push through it and just remain positive and yeah, get through the low because the high the fun shit that's easy to get through. Easy to
Yeah,
get through. Where you really make your bones and how you get further is getting through the low points. You know,
yeah,
and I really feel like that's where I am right now, and I'm trying so fucking hard to push myself out of it. And even though I got shit going on, I know I'm in a dangerous point in my career, and I could easily just slide off into the abyss and become nothing after doing this for 13 years. And I know I'm just at a point where I really have to step it up even more, and I got to do it soon.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel like I am, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you obviously been doing something good, man. You did. I mean, you do. Open up for Mark Norman. Like, how does what is that experience been like for you?
It's been great, man. It's just like with him, it was just like what I really learned from him was like keep writing and trust your jokes. Like he really let me know that like, hey man, you're like a funny comedian who write you write great jokes. You write great jokes. You know, that's what I learned from him. Because before that, I felt like I had good jokes, but like I love doing crowd work and having fun, and I could have easily slid into that vein of being the crowd work guy. But to be honest, man, it's unless you're somewhere where you can really get discovered, being the crowd work guy ain't gonna get you anywhere. And that's what Mark told me. The money is in the jokes.
Hmm.
You gotta write the jokes. But my one piece of advice is push through the lows. Push through the lows and be positive.
Chris, tell people why they should listen to Comedians in Bed.
They should listen to it because I'm on it and because it's a great show. And yeah, if they love comedy, they would do it. They would listen to this fucking show because it's fantastic. I had a great time.
Chris, where can people find you at?
They can find me at Chris Allen Comedy, ALAN, on all things social media. And I will be in Denver December 9th and 10th. I want to say the Comedy Lounge. I'll also be at the DC Improv December 15th through the 17th in the lounge showcase. That'll be fun. And I don't know if I'm gonna be there, but I might be in Connecticut with Norman at the December 2nd. I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna do it or not. My sister's baby shower is that weekend, so
Is that was that the text? My sister's baby shower this weekend. Dot dot dot. I'll let you know.
yeah, man,
Hey,
fuck. I
Hey
gotta.
man,
Uh,
hey man, this has been another great episode of Comedians in Bed. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ty Erskine. You can also subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We like to thank Chris for coming on, man. This has been another great episode,
thanks.
man.
Thanks for having me.
Please make sure you follow Chris on all things social. We'll see you guys next week.